Currently walking down this road here in Putnam County, West Virginia. Today we're going to talk about the rape and murder of 16-year-old Sharon Pryor. This crime committed almost 50 years ago and would go unsolved for all of that time until recently, when the clue to the identity of her killer would be found 6 feet underground. Franklin Romine was born in Huntington, West Virginia on April 2nd, 1946. And to say that this guy wasn't a troublemaker would be absolutely laughable. This little demon, when he was just 11 years old, he had already got started in his life of crime, being arrested at that age. By the time he's 18, he already won himself a trip to the state penitentiary here in West Virginia. So this guy, in and out of jail and prison for practically all of his entire life. So in February 1974, a woman is in her home and a man breaks in, puts a knife to her throat, and tells her to shut up, and then proceeds to rape her. After he's done, he throws a $20 bill at her and leaves. She contacts the sheriff's department. They come, they take her statement, and then they quickly arrest one Franklin Romine. He gets arrested. He's locked up in jail. He makes the $2,500 bail, and then he disappears. It would be right at about 7 or 8 months or so, he's eventually caught at the border in Canada. They see that he has a warrant for his arrest. They extradite him back down here to West Virginia to stand trial for the rape. He's eventually found guilty of it, and he's sentenced, I think it was 5 to 10 years in prison. Now, the story doesn't end there, because a few years later, while he's in prison, he gets a reversal of his conviction by the West Virginia Supreme Court. He is basically given a new trial because of what they determined, that the jury of his trial, they were given some type or another of faulty juror instructions. So they do it all again, but instead of going to trial, he just pleads guilty to second-degree sexual assault. So with his time having already been served, he gets credit for time served, and he only does another few months in prison, and then he's released. He goes back to Canada, but only a little while later, he would be found dead on August 20th, 1982. Still not clear on how he died, but I would say good riddance to bad rubbish. We're going to go back in time a little bit, however, to March 29th, 1975. We're in Longueuil, Quebec, Canada. 16-year-old Sharon Pryor. It's March 29th, 1975. She's going to go meet up with her friends at a pizza joint at around 7 p.m. Now, she never shows up. One of her friends calls her mother and says, hey, we don't know where Sharon is. We're getting kind of worried. And also, a girl was attacked about a couple hours ago by a man. The girl is okay, but we don't know where Sharon is. So the mother, she starts getting very, very worried about her kid. Sharon did not come back that night. She didn't come back the next night or the following night. 3 days later, her mother picks up a newspaper, and in the newspaper on the front page is a story about a young girl who was found dead about 15 miles away on the South Shore section of Montreal. She starts immediately saying, that's Sharon, and the most horrific wailing you would ever want to hear coming out of a household ever. She knows that's her daughter that they found. And later they would confirm that that was 16-year-old Sharon Pryor. She had been brutally raped and murdered. And they're investigating the scene. Of course, they don't know what DNA is at the time, so it was common protocol with the police department there that they would hold all the evidence. Now, mind you, I told you that same day that somebody tried to abduct a young female, and they put a knife to her throat. The police are talking to her because they're believing that these two cases are related. So they asked the girl to describe the man, and she said that he was late 20s, early 30s, about 6 feet tall. He had blue eyes, short, light-colored brown hair, and a mustache, and he spoke to her in English. Now, that would stick out to detectives' minds because Montreal, the language over there that people mostly speak is French. So somebody coming up to you to speak English, not that it's unheard of, because I want to say 60% or so of people speak French first, but that resonated with the detectives. So her brutal murder would go unsolved for almost 50 years until very recently, when some detectives with some fresh eyes start looking over her case again. And of course, you have the advent of DNA technology. So with the advent of new DNA technology, a couple of detectives with fresh eyes on the case, they take the clothing that was held in evidence for almost 50 years and they submit it to a genealogy company. So the DNA came back with a hit that it matched the name Romine. So there were, I want to say 8 children, 4 of them boys with the last name of Romine from Putnam County. And they start looking into the names of the brothers. And one of the brothers, Franklin Romine, they look him up, and he has a very violent criminal past. And he's been arrested several times, including the 1974 rape in West Virginia. And also he's been arrested several times in Canada. So we got a hit on the DNA. So it is basically one of those 4 brothers. Now, 2 of them are dead, and one of them is Franklin. He died in 1982. So they contact the 2 brothers that are still alive, and they tell them if they can get a sample of DNA from them, and also they would need to come to this very cemetery to disinter the remains of Franklin Romine so they can get DNA from him. So one of the brothers, when he was talking to investigators, he says, "Oh yeah, I'm totally not surprised. He probably did it because when I was stationed in Okinawa in the Marines, he tried to rape my wife. And after that, I wanted to kill him, and I basically stayed away from him. And that was that. He was just a very, very violent person." In the summer of 2024, investigators from the police department in Longueuil, Quebec, Canada, and along with sheriff's deputies in Putnam County, they come to this very cemetery because, well, they're going to disinter Franklin Romine just to make beyond a shadow of a doubt that he is the man that was responsible for Sharon's rape and murder. They come to this very cemetery, and their mission is to grab at least 5 bones from the grave of Franklin Romine and to test it for DNA. So they would come to this grave right here, and as you can see, it has been recently disturbed. And this is the grave of Franklin Romine, the rapist. So they go ahead and grab 5 bones from him. They send it back to Canada for DNA analysis. And it took, I think, about a month or so to find out whether he was the one that was responsible for Sharon's murder. And, well, of course he was. This is why I'm here. So the family finally got closure, finding out who murdered their sister, their daughter. And it was this punk right here. So just a very a murder that did not need to occur, and I believe at the time, I'm sure Canada didn't do the background checks that they needed to do to prevent this guy from crossing over on into Canada. So my condolences to Sharon's family. Maybe one day I would go visit her final resting place. But I will end the video right here and say, at least this man is no longer able to hurt anybody. There's tons of earth on top of him and a steel vault keeping him from hurting anybody anymore.